Hello, everybody. My name is the Sobri Boys Walifatse from the Big R. You know very well that the Big R is a company that deals with financial issues, all right? Look, in essence, if you don't want to talk about money, what else do you want to talk about? Because the world goes around because of the money. You like it or not, there's wars all over the world. It's money. Never be fooled. Whether it's politics, it's money, the bottom line. Whether it's sport or what, it's money. Now, if money is so important, it's central to our lives, why don't we take time and teach ourselves about money? Why? That's very important. So now, as the Big R, we decided to travel that route, all right? Because maybe me and you, and maybe some of you are more even qualified than me, are professors and doctors, but the school never taught us about money. All right. So where do we get the money? In the streets, as you tumble and stumble and making mistake, bend your fingers. That's how we learn. All right. Now it's a long introduction of Anna-Rita Celliers, who's from XTS, which is one of the credit bureau, whom I'm going to interview today. But before I go there, Anita, maybe before I introduce you, let me explain what the Big R stands for. The Big R stands for all the positive R words in English, all right? All of them, with no exception. Positive ones, not negative ones, like reading, research, responsibility, resilience, reflect, review, records, which is part of what you guys are doing. I'm saying responsibility, one of the key ones, responsibility, relationship. Those are the positive R words. Look, I'm saying if you want to resolve your financial woes, if you can apply those R words, you'll succeed. Just read, just do research about money. So what we are doing now is part of research. It's part of learning, all right? So, and it's our responsibility to resolve whatever problems that we have. We all have problems. COVID-19 has made it worse, all right? But how do you get out of this mess? We get out of this mess by educating ourselves, start working positively. People sometimes ask me this question, investment. I said, that's a big word, investment. And the first investment people that don't understand is investing in yourself. How do you invest in yourself? Educate yourself. All right. So people, and it's in the street. Anita is in the street as XDS, they are there, out there in the street, they will teach you what are they doing, because they are a very important establishment when it comes to credit industry. And people don't understand that debt is new money. If you want to have money, you need to understand that. So this is one most important component of that particular aspect. Anita, it was a long introduction, but at the same time, I also wanted you to have the understanding who we are and why we have you today. So I'm honored. I'm really pleased that you agreed to this interview. All right, so that we educate our people. Knowledge is power, and knowledge we're given by God here. Remember, right from the beginning, when Adam and Eve faltered, God said, I'm giving you knowledge. You must solve your problems. Welcome to the show. Can you just greet the viewers and introduce yourself? Can also make a long introduction if you want to.
Thank you, Sobri. Thank you so much for having us here. I definitely agree with you. Knowledge is power. And, you know, these are things that we don't learn in school. And when you are finished school, you are thrown in the deep end and you don't know what's right and what should you do, what shouldn't you do. You know, and unfortunately, we learn, you know, from past generations who might have had skewed views of it. You know, who still believe in the terms blacklisting, where there's one list where only bad payers are. You know, and that's not how things work. in these days. So knowledge is definitely power, and I'm so glad to be here to at least, teach people about what credit is, how it works, where you get to look at it, all of those things.
All right. Now let's start here. Anna-Rita Celliers. Who's Anna-Rita Celliers? Just tell me who's Anna-Rita Celliers. Where are you working? What is your title? What are your qualifications? And all that. If you can just briefly say that. And you know what? When I say qualification, I'm not doing it in a bad way, because people sometimes they think that qualifications are a license to success. No. They are not. We need them, all right, to pass certain hurdles. But yes. I just want to know who's Anita.
Perfect. So I'm Anna-Rita Celliers. I've been working at XDS for about 7 years now. I've been in the marketing and product space. So we, XDS is a credit bureau licensed with NCR, and I've been, exposed to this whole world of credit that I've never been exposed to before. Before getting here, I didn't even know that I had a credit report. And where to even find one, how many are there? So that was a huge learning curve. So many people don't know about this. So it is so important that we teach them. I've been at XDS for quite a while, working in the marketing and the product space, where we've created a few products for consumers, where they can access their own credit profile, identity theft monitoring products, things that are so essential in this day and time. Before I started at XDS, I was at Varsity, and I got a BCom honors in business management, entrepreneurship, and marketing, which helped me get to where I am today. Of course, it gives you the foundation, of what you need to know, but it is nothing like the real life. The real world is, completely different, but at least it prepares you, for it. Okay.
Now, Anita, if one may ask, what is credit report? You know better. What is credit report? I'm a person there, a layman there, a person like Shaw who doesn't know and understand. What is a credit report? In a simple terms.
Definitely a good question. So in simple terms, a credit report is kept by a credit bureau, and it contains information about your credit, and it is reported by companies that have given you credit before. So when you apply for credit, such as a credit card, the credit provider that you're applying at will ask for a credit report from a credit bureau on you. So if I had to go and ask for credit, if I wanted to open, let's say, a clothing account, that credit provider will request a credit report on me to see if I can afford it. Firstly, that is the main goal, and to see if I'm a high risk or not. And within your credit report, there is a credit score. So what is a credit score? So credit scores are generally 3 to 4 digit numbers that determine the likelihood that you are to repay borrowed money back. That's a big sentence. But it means that the higher your score, it just means that you have a higher likelihood of paying it back. So the lower the score, it means that I might not be able to pay it back. So maybe don't give me a higher credit limit, give me a lower credit limit. Just as an example, but it is an indication of how you're handling your current debt. Okay. There are quite a few credit bureaus in South Africa, and each credit bureau has their own score. So your score and your report won't be the same at every credit bureau. It will typically have the same information all around. The information will differ very lightly, but it's more the display of it. It's just how we package it and how, pretty you make it look. And yeah, the higher the score, the more financially trustworthy you will be in the credit provider's eyes, which then result to you having a better chance of being approved for that credit.
You've mentioned something very, very important in your input. Now, first you said there is scoring. Now, if you can explain how do they score 1? Secondly, I also want to, you said you are not the only credit bureau, because people out there, we are talking to XDS. XDS, it's another credit bureau. Now, how many credit bureaus do we have in the country? That's the second question. The third question, I'm a consumer. And then I realized that, oh, okay, XDS said I've got a good score. Do I have to go through all of this credit bureau and check? Or there's any other thing? I've asked you 3 questions, remember? Okay.
Okay, so on question 1, I'm going to just skip through to question 2, sorry, to make it up.
No problem.
Okay. So actually, never mind. Maybe we can edit this out. I'm just going to stop.
No, yeah, say whatever that you want to say. Yeah.
Perfect. So a credit score is the 3 to 4 digit number that tells you the provider the likelihood that you are to repay the borrowed money. It is calculated by algorithms. And there are different factors that contribute to it. So it would be the length of your credit utilization, inquiries, that sort of thing. And those factors that are what determines your credit score and what your credit score will be. And it is calculated in the background by algorithms.
Okay. Now, in simple terms, when they inquire, something works in the algorithm.
Yes.
When they inquire, if I keep a loan or a credit for a particular period, that's another score.
Yes.
That's what you are saying.
No, so you only have one credit score at each credit bureau. And there are there's different factors that affect your credit score. So let's say I don't have any credit. I'll start with a credit score of say 500. And then I apply for credit because you need credit to determine a credit score. So say I'm on 500 and it's a very high risk score because a credit bureau can't determine if I can actually pay my accounts on time or not, and if I am high risk or not. So what I'll do is then I'll open a small account. It doesn't need to be a big account. It doesn't need to be like a 10,000 Rand credit limit. It can be a 50 Rand credit limit. And so I'll go to a clothing account and I open my first credit account. And from there, I start building up my credit history. So the longer you keep a credit account open, the better your length is. Okay, the better it shows that you can pay your account on time. So for the first 3 months, your credit score will gradually increase, but thereafter, your credit score will increase because then it shows you that Anna-Rita can actually pay her credit on time. And I'll take a little bit later, I'll take you through what it actually looks like on a credit report. There's also a concept called a credit utilization ratio, which is how much debt you have in relation to your credit. So for example, I have one account, my credit limit is 1,000 Rand, and I've used that whole 1,000 Rand. So that means my ratio is 100% because I've used everything that they've given me, which generally does not look good in credit providers' eyes because it shows that they've given you a little bit and you've used all of it. So it's best to keep that between 20 to 30%.
Usage.
To show that you are responsible with the money. That's a good credit thumb.
Brilliant one. I've learned. Brilliant one.
You see, we all learn every day. So there are, quite a few factors that affect your credit score, but those are the main ones, that make a big difference. And on to question 2, the credit bureaus in South Africa. So credit bureaus must be registered with the NCR as a credit bureau in South Africa. And XDS is one of them, but there is also TransUnion, Experian, CompuScan, which is a part of Experian now too, VeryCred, and Consumer Profile Bureau. Those are the main ones that you will generally hear about, but there are quite a few other ones, but that are not so consumer facing as we are.
Okay. Now, I know in our industry as debt counselors, we work largely with XDS. I've heard my colleague said, you know what, if you have checked with XDS, the likelihood is the same across. Is that correct, that notion, or do I still have to check with CompuScan and TransUnion and so on?
So it would generally be the same, but there is some difference. So you won't have a 500 credit score at XDS, but have a 900 credit score at TransUnion. So they will be similar, but they will differ only slightly. The best thing is to check your credit report at every credit bureau. It is quite a bit of work, but at least you'll know what is on every single credit report.
What it looks like. What it looks like,
what is on it. And just something else maybe that most people are not aware of is that, say, for example, XDS have, they provide solutions to businesses, so to credit providers when you're applying for credit, but we also have a platform for consumers to view their credit profile, like Splendy. So, you can have access to your credit profile all year long, without a cost to you. Not all credit bureaus do this. It is your right to at least have one free credit report from every credit bureau at least once a year.
Once a year.
So, without paying for it, that is your right. But if you want to have a look at it more often, say if you want to look at it every month, which is what we advise, is the best time, they can charge for it. But there are other options out there, there are so many options for you to have a look at your credit scores. And there are monitoring options as well that tell you then when something changes, so that you don't need to log in, every time, but you only need to log in when there is a change.
When it's necessary. Okay.
Yes.
Now, you said in your input, let's say that was one of your examples. You start with 500 credit score. At the beginning, you are a higher risk. So what could be the opposite of 500, which is a high risk? And what numbers reflect, which is a lower risk, looking at XDS? What could be the points?
So if we're looking at XDS, specifically because each credit bureau, has their own credit score and their own weightings. But generally, it goes up to 1,000, so it doesn't increase from there. The best credit score would be around 900. But, for you to start being, approved by credit providers, it typically ranges around 700 and above.
Okay.
For you to have, a low risk credit score, you're in the green, you most likely won't be denied for credit at any credit provider.
So in other words, if my score is 50, the chances I won't get anything.
Correct.
I won't get anything. So the higher the score is, the good chance one to be given credit.
Correct.
So that's what it means. Okay.
That's the higher the score, the better.
Okay. Now, if you are to advise the public out there, talk about the fraud that is happening in terms of people going to a shop, they've stolen identity of Sobri or Anita, and then the next thing, I owe Edgar so much money, and I don't even know about it. What role, why is it necessary? Although I'm trying to answer my question, but you'll answer it better than me. Why is it necessary for public out there to continue to check their credit score? If you may give an advice. Yes, you have said it, that people are entitled to credit score once a year. But if, let's say, you want to be savvy, what can you do? How many times can you check? Or there is there is a way that you have as an XDS that, yes, somebody is trying to open up an account using your identity number or your ID. They can forge them, and then can I be alerted? Just like there's a debit thing now, where a debit order is going, then you clock on your phone to allow it or disallow it. Is as people like you, Credit Bureau, have a similar arrangement now?
So to answer your last question first, that similar arrangement doesn't exist at the moment, purely because when Bob goes and applies for credit at credit provider number one, credit provider number one pulls their credit report from a credit bureau, looks and sees, can he afford it? Because we don't want to give credit, to people who are over indebted. That just puts them in a trap and they can never get out. It makes it so hard for them to get out. So they look at their credit report, and then from there, they decide whether or not to give them credit. So yes, we'll give Bob credit. And then from there, the credit providers report it back to the credit bureaus. So all credit providers in South Africa, they report their information daily, weekly, or monthly to the credit bureaus. So as soon as we get any updated information, we have what we call is ID Hero. And what it does is that as soon as something changes on your credit reports, it sends you an SMS. And it'll tell you, Sobri, you've got a new account was opened in your name. Have a look on Splendid to see more information. So then if I'm the person who's applying for the credit and I get that SMS, then at least I have peace of mind to say, okay, look, they are monitoring, they're making sure that everything is still fine, they're alerting me. But if it wasn't me, which in so many cases that happens, and it happens all over, and then at least you will be alerted. It'll say, hey, Anna-Rita, there's a new account on your name from credit provider so-and-so, have a look at the details. You can then log into Splendid, you can look at your credit information, you can see, all that accounts details. And you can say, okay, look, this wasn't me. I never applied for this credit. And you can phone that credit provider right away and put a stop to it. Because in so many cases, because we don't look at our credit profiles often, we don't know these things happen. And the worst is that sometimes it's over a year. And, all of a sudden you get these calls from debt collectors, saying you owe this, this company money. And you're thinking, but I've never opened an account with them. I've never dealt with them before. And they've never, I've never been in contact with them. Just for you to find out that someone opened the account in your name and, went on and spent all this money and never paid it back, because they're fraudsters. They just want the money, and you're left there to pay the debt. So if what we thought, we came up with this idea so that you'll be alerted right away. Because there is no, debit check mandate, similar in the credit space. And, if you're alerted earlier, you can put a stop to it right away. So we can, phone this credit provider and say, look, I've got an alert, that a new account has been opened in my name, but I never did this. And what they'll then do is they'll open a fraudulent case and, they'll take it from there.
One of the issues that is worrying, Anita, credit bureaus, you call, I don't know what's happening to their call center. Their phone rings or you hang on for too long. It's not unique to you guys across. Remember, our industry is a debt council. I'm working with credit bureaus. We experienced that. This one is not a question, but I'm gonna just make an appeal, just pass it on to your colleagues out there, especially during this time of COVID-19, because people are working from home. It's a little bit challenging. So, and you can imagine, it's pressing. People want to solve whatever problem that they have, and now they wait for too long. They don't get answers. You are being told of 24 hours. You know what? It's so frustrating. Service delivery in South Africa, it has lot to improve. There's quite a lot. So I'm just passing that. Talk to your colleagues. They need to improve as far as that is concerned. All right. Yeah. Now, so it is at least you'll be knowing few things that I've picked up. The higher your score, the greater chance of getting a credit. And then when you have, I'm trying to summarize which are good points for me and hopefully for the public out there. If people, you have a limit of 1,000, if you take the entire 1,000, it doesn't reflect good on you. But 30%, 20%, it's ideally, it increases your chances. And then paying on time is important. Without having a credit, it works against you. It doesn't work in your favor. Because people might say, no, I don't want that, you know. I don't sleep because of that. When I started, that is new money. If you say you don't want that, you don't want money. So once you understand what that is, then you'll be able to understand. So those are some of the points that you highlighted on, and then yeah, I don't know whether there's any other thing that you'd like to check. And then you also spoke about 4 big credit bureaus, which is Experian, XDS, CompuScan, and what? 2 of them?
TransUnion.
And TransUnion. Those are 4.
There's another 2, Very Crate and CompuScan.
And CompuScan. So those are.
Yeah, sorry, we already said CompuScan. It's a Consumer Profile Bureau, or CPB for short.
Okay. All right. If you don't mind, if you can send me their contacts after this interview, then we have, and then when people want that information, then we can make it available. Now,
just sorry, just to speak to your last point about you have to have credit to have a credit score, which is it is contradictory. You have to open an account, but who's going to approve you? So if you don't have credit at the moment, say you've got a default score of 0 or 500, because you're very high risk, we've got no information on you. There are ways that you can apply for credit, such as a secured credit card, with your banking company, maybe a store card, something with a small credit limit, where you're more likely to be approved, because they are more likely to give you credit as a first-time credit grantor, if you could call it that. So just because you don't have credit doesn't mean you'll never get it. There are clever ways of doing it. And also you don't, if you need to, say if you want to open a vehicle finance account soon, or you're planning on buying a house, it's always good to keep your credit score in mind, because a lot of the time that determines, if you will get approved or not, how much your interest rate will be, how much your repayment is. So a credit score is very handy when you're opening these big ticket items that you generally don't have cash to pay for. If you want to buy a car and it's 100,000 Rand, we don't just have 100,000 Rand lying around that you could just use as cash. So that's where credit is actually helpful. Where credit is, hurts you is where, you're opening accounts, not paying it on time. You're just spending and you're not caring about how you're doing it. So there's definitely a method to this. Also, one thing to keep in mind is that the cost of credit. So if I'm taking out 1,000 Rand loan for whatever reason I need it, whether it be because, my car broke down and I need to, pay that, for whatever reason, it's always good to know what the total cost of credit is. So if I'm opening 1,000 Rand loan, I might end up paying 2,000 Rand instead of 1,000 Rand, because of interest, because of initiation fees, your monthly fees, and interest bills as you go. So it's very important to know exactly how much you're getting, not just how much you have to repay every month.
Am I going to be right if I say, if you have a bad credit record, the chances are your interest rate will be high? Your cost of credit will be very, very high as compared to somebody who's got a very good credit score.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Now, let's check. Do you have any dummy credit report? Because those are numbers, you know, when you talk to laymen like Sobri, we need to see it and understand it better as compared to you know, doing it as a theory, practical. Do you have something to show and explain it nicely to a layman? Nicely to a layman, not to a sophisticated somebody. A sophisticated somebody like you, laymen like us. Can you just explain it? Do you have it?
Yes, perfect. If I can share my screen.
All right.
Just give me a second. Okay, it should be coming through. It's just thinking. Okay, so I'm going to take you through an example credit report as you would see it on Splendy. Again, you know, the information across the board, across the credit bureaus is generally the same. It's just the way it's displayed. So the other credit bureaus might just show it in a different way, but essentially it would be the same information. Okay, so this is an overview, a summary of your credit. Okay, so we will be going through all of these icons, and this is just, you know, the summary of it, of what we're seeing. So over here you'll see this is your credit score, and Splendy's, for example, is out of 1,000.
Credit score is it here? 791.
Yes.
791. Okay.
There we go. Your credit score here, 791.
Okay.
Okay. And then just to the bottom of it, this shows you here your percentage of debt that you're using. So earlier we spoke about your 1,000 Rand debt, and you using your 1,000 Rand up, and that's 100%. Okay, so in this case, under revolving and short-term debt, okay, this person has used 40% because their credit limit is 5,000 and they've used 2,000 of it. So their credit limit, their credit ratio is 40%. Okay? In this case, there's a medium and long-term debt, and theirs is 16% because they've got a 59,000 Rand credit limit, but they've only used 9,600. So below 20 to 30% is ideal. So this person, you know, we would advise them, look, get your credit, your debt to credit ratio under 20 to 30%.
Just hold it there. The lower ratio or the lower percentage increases your chances of getting more debt or getting a very expensive debt like a bond and so on. And the chances are your interest might not, the cost of debt might not be too high. That's the question.
The cost will could definitely be lower. The chances of you getting approved for that credit by the credit provider would also be good. And not just on this factor, but based on the credit score itself. Okay. And sorry, what was the first question you asked? No,
what I was saying, in other words, as we are looking at the picture now, which is clear to us, I'm saying, like you have explicitly or beautifully explained, that a person has a credit limit of 59,100, but the person borrowed 9,000 only, which is 16%. And then the other one, out of 5,120, borrowed 40% of that. The guy of 16% has a better chance of getting more credits and better percentage in terms of the interest rate. In other words, that's all I was clarifying. It was not a question. Am I correct?
Based on the credit score, yes, but not so much just on your percentage over here at the bottom.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Then you can go on. Yeah.
And over here on the right-hand side, we have a summary of the number of accounts in good standing. So this person has 2. The number of accounts in bad standing, this is 0, which is very good. The total outstanding debt. So this adds up, you know, how much debt you are owing over here. Okay. Your total monthly installments. So this is how much this person needs to repay per month. So if you are unsure because you have 5 different accounts, you know, you're not too sure how much you're spending on credit. This tells you exactly how much every month so that it helps you budget. It helps you know exactly how much you need to put away to pay these accounts first. Your total arrears amount. So over here, you'll see that this is 0. If someone was in arrears, it would tell you. Your new accounts opened. So if you had applied for accounts in the past 2 months, this would it would show a 1 or 2 or 3 depending on how many accounts. Adverse listings over here is any defaults or judgments. So this is bad information. This is information you don't want on your profile. It does affect your score negatively. And it's generally when you've opened an account, you've stopped paying it, they've tried to phone you, they've tried to collect it. And then from there, they've taken a judgment on your name because Anna-Rita is not paying her accounts anymore. You know, we can't get hold of her, you know, and you've left them with no other option. And we then have directorship listings. So if you have registered a company, or if you are a director of a company that is registered at the CIPC, which is the, you know, where you go and you register your businesses. Okay, this will display over here. So it will see if I had any companies
under my name.
Yes, under my name, you would see over here it would be a 3, a 4, a 1. At the moment, this person has 0.
Why they're still there? What does that say to a person who has companies and the person who doesn't have companies? Any positive or negativity?
It's not. I wouldn't say it's not negative, but you know, it's not a big factor within your credit score. So it's good information to have to know that, you know, you are responsible. You've done this but it's not a big factor in your credit score at all.
Now, you have just said something that you are responsible. I'm saying if let's say directorship listing there, a guy has 10 companies in his name and the other one has 0. So how does credit bureau, how do creditors look at these people? Do they look the one with 10 companies favorably or unfavorably compared to the one with 0?
I would say neither.
Pardon?
It's neither.
Okay.
So not favorable, not unfavorable.
Okay.
It doesn't skew the decisions, and it doesn't help, you know, with the decision-making process of the credit providers.
It's just an information. It's just information.
It's just an information. Yes. And what helps them in some terms is that if you are applying for credit on the business name, and then, you know, they would have to look at your profile as well to make sure that you can afford it. So that's sort of where it comes in, but it's more on the actual business side when a business is applying for credit.
Okay. All right.
Then we've got the last one over here is property listings. So if you have any properties listed at the deeds office in South Africa, they will display over here. So this person doesn't have a house registered in their name, so it won't. It displays a 0 at the moment.
The same question: if there is a guy who's got 2 properties and a guy with 0 properties, will that work in favor or a disadvantage for the one who has the property or the one who does not have the property?
The same as with the directorship listings. It won't, there's barely any difference. It's just an informational piece over there.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so this is just a summary. Okay, on the next slide, we have the personal information. So one thing, it is important to note that if there is anything wrong on your credit report at any credit bureau, you can dispute it. By disputing means that you can, you contact the credit bureau and you say, this is not right, fix it. Please, politely. But, you know, you can contact them, you can request for that information to be fixed. So over here, in the case of personal information, we see that a lot of the times this is the most outdated information, purely because when you last applied for credit, so I'm just going to use myself in this example, I've applied at ABC Credit, and I've put certain information in my credit application. That information is what gets sent to the credit bureau, that personal information. So if you put your employer as Bob's company, that is what would reflect on XDS. And you know, that's the personal information that reflects on our side. So a lot of the times the information is outdated because you have not applied for credit in a very long time. You know, you might still have a previous address listed as your address, purely just because you haven't applied for credit with your new information.
Now, while you're still there, is it necessary for people, let's say they've changed address, to also change, to check their personal information on credit bureau and update it? Is it necessary?
I would say no. It's not necessary. You know, when you apply for credit, that will change, but it's not the most, you know, it's not the most important thing to do.
Okay.
You
know why I'm asking this? I'm linking this with the prescription. All right, prescription.
Yeah.
A person says, no, I'm moved, and then as a result, remember, it is the responsibility of me as a consumer to inform the creditors that I've moved from the old address to the new address. And then I moved without notifying them, and communication continues to go to the old address. The next thing, there is a debt or a credit that rears its head, and then I want to use prescription as a way of dealing with it. Then they say, we communicated with you, and then they show a proof. And that was a previous address where they send, and then I lose. So I'm asking on the basis of that, do sometimes court also ask the credit bureau, whether did I update it?
No, in that case, no. But what I will do is I'll contact our legal department just to get the legalities, you know, around that specific situation for prescription. But when someone contacts, you know, when someone say I've got an account on my name and it is from 2015, and you know, I want to dispute it as it's been prescribed, you know, because no one ever made contact with me, you know, for whatever reason it is, you can contact the credit bureau and you can log a dispute on that. And then what the credit bureau does is that they go and investigate with the credit provider and say, look, you know, we're logging this for prescription. Can we, can't we? You know, they do their own internal investigations as well. Okay. But generally, there is a specific time period as well.
Okay. And while they're still there, change of information, you know, when it comes to ladies, they have the maiden surname and also the new surname. Will that be important in my information to have a new surname reflecting as compared to the old surname?
That will automatically be updated. Because as the Department of Home Affairs, you know, as your information changes there, it'll change over here too at each of the credit bureaus. Okay. So that's at least something you don't have to do yourself.
Oh, the system is already synchronized.
Yes.
Okay. All right. No, that's fine.
Okay, so this is your personal information screen. You know, you can see your addresses, and we've just, you know, marked out this person's address, contact number, and employment history. So this is just for informational purposes. It does not, you know, contribute to your credit score in any way. Okay. Next up, we have revolving and short-term credits. So this section and this section, the next two sections we'll be covering, they display the information of all your accounts. So the first one we'll be looking at is revolving and short-term, and the next one we'll be looking at is medium to long-term. So those are just two different types of categories of credit. Revolving and short-term is such as your payday loans, things that are not long-term debt, which could be a vehicle, a house. Those are things that you take over for many more years than you would do a normal revolving and short-term credit. Okay, so this over here, you'll see it displays the information, okay, of your account, such as your name, your account number. I'm going to take this one, for example, over here. Okay, this is one we've just marked out the names, but it'll tell you the account name, it'll tell you the account number, the current balance, and if it's active or not. So you can see this one is active and this one is closed. Important point is that closed accounts don't count towards your credit score calculation.
Okay. So now, while they're still there, I want you to elaborate a little bit. So, because sometimes a person might say, no, I've got a lot of closed accounts. They're closed, all of them. So it's not an advantage to have a closed account.
No.
Or is it an advantage to have a closed account as compared to active accounts? I just want you to elaborate on it.
I would say at least it would be an advantage. You can close all your accounts, just keep at least one account open, and preferably one with the longest credit history. That just because it shows you that you've had a very long period of credit and that you are a good payer. So let's use this one as an example. You can see here there's many ticks and they go back to August 2020. On your credit report, it generally shows you your 24 monthly payment history. Okay, but you could have opened your account in 2000. So you've got a very long track record, so that's good. So if a person has 10 accounts and they want all of them closed, I would advise for them to, close those that they need to close, but keep one of them open. One with a good repayment history and one with a good, a good length of credit. Purely because if they close all of them, their credit score defaults back to a 0, back to a default credit score, because now there's nothing open, so there's nothing contributing towards the credit score.
Anita,
yes.
One of the issues is this, that some people, they have accounts, they paid up, all right? And then paid up everything, it doesn't always got 0 balance. Now, because the account is still there, the creditors continue to charge monthly fee, apply and stuff like that. Then a person wakes up, hey, I owe 5,000. How come? The next thing, they take a person to attorneys. In other words, they take legal action. So now, some of those activities motivate people to close. So no, let me close them, because if I keep them open, they keep on generating money for them, of which I don't have, or I'm not intending to spend. Maybe I want to prioritize my money to somewhere else. And that is why people decide to close those accounts. But now they also argue, these creditors, and say, if you close, when you come back to open, it's going to be difficult. And that's the information that I give. I just want to hear your comment. I'm not saying, is it a good, you have already given us an answer that if you have 10, close all of them, keep one open, so that at least you have one active, all right? So I don't know, you want to comment on that? That's something that I observe.
Yes, so a good rule of thumb would be when you're closing an account, say you have 10 accounts and you want to close 9 of them, and keep one active because you want to use it or you want to keep it, to contribute towards your score. The best thing is to, when you close them, you make sure that you get that actual closure letter from the credit provider. Because in some cases, and more often than not, is that you close your account, or you think you've closed your account, but the credit provider keeps charging you your monthly fees. And then before you know it, you're being charged 5,000 Rand, and, but I've closed this account. Why are you charging me this? And, you fall into that sort of situation. So when you're closing accounts, it's always best to get the actual closure letter to make sure that it is closed. And then within the next month, it'll reflect at the credit bureau's closed. On the point of keeping a credit account open, yes, definitely, you will, if your account is open, you will carry on, you will have to keep paying that monthly repayments. So say you had 1,000 Rand credit limit at this credit provider, you've paid all 1,000 Rand, but every month they're going to charge you a monthly fee, whether that be 20 Rand, or 100 Rand, depending on the credit provider, you will definitely be charged that. So that's something that you'll need to keep in mind when you keep an account open, and you're not intending to use it.
Yeah.
But in the same light, you could keep one open from ABC's credit that you are using, that you will use in the future, and keep repaying them every month. But just make sure that it is, like something that you can afford. It's something small, like 20 Rand a month. That's not going to hurt you if you can't actually afford it.
Let me put it this way. In fact, I want to do a disclaimer. I want people to get it clear that you are not saying this is how it works, all right? You are giving information, all right? Decision rests with consumers out there, all right? Yes. At the end of the day, because tomorrow I don't want people to say, there was Ms Celliers who said I must do it this way. Then I'm gonna sue Anita. The decision is yours. We give you information, but the final decision rests with you as a consumer. Ideally, I would say if you don't need the accounts, close all of them and make sure you've got closed letters, and then keep only one active so that at least your credit score is still there. And that's ideal. And then probably that in 6 months' time, because I normally say money is the mind. If you use your mind properly, you'll be able to have money. You know very well that next year I want to buy something. I need to buy something that is going to be costly, and I'm going to use that. So I can start opening up accounts now, at least for 3 months, to retain them so that at least my score can increase. Is it true that if your score has been terrible, you need only 3 months to repair that? Am I correct?
It will take 3 months for you to start seeing an improvement, but it obviously won't be the best score you've had, or that you will have. But from 3 months, you will start seeing an improvement.
An improvement. So what would be the ideal period? 6 months?
I would say 6 to 12 months. If you haven't had credit before. If it was something that was wrong in your credit profile and you've disputed it, if it was a judgment, if it was something like that, and you remove it, then you could see a slight increase right away. It also just depends on, what information we're talking to.
Yeah. No, I'm saying here you have closed them. Remember, this is one guy. He wants to make sure that he manages his debts very well, or his credits very well. So let me close. I don't need them now. All right. So after that, then he knows, I want to buy a property, all right? Because I want to buy a property, let me invest 12 months in opening up new accounts and retain them for 12 months so that the score can that's what I'm referring to. Will that be correct as a way of managing my credits?
Yes, technically that would be correct, but it also depends on how much credit you're asking for. So if you say if you closed all your accounts, you had 10 accounts, you closed all of them, you've got nothing open, you default back to a 0 or a 400 credit score, No,
you keep one active, not close all of them, keep one active.
Okay. Yes, so then you won't even need to wait that long. Depending on what your credit score is already, and you've already got a long credit history, a long repayment history, then you should be good. So to take this person over here in the slides, for example, they have a 791 score, you know, and they've got one closed account, they've got one active account, and we'll see on the next slide, there's another active account. So it doesn't mean that you have to have, you know, so many credit accounts open to have a good score, but it also means a 791 credit score is good. You know, you saw it's very good, but it also depends on how much I'm asking for. So if I'm asking for 50 million rand, you know, that's different than asking for 50,000 rand at the credit provider. So it all works with how much you're asking for. But if you're looking at doing something long-term, like getting a car, you know, getting a house, one of those big ticket items, you know, that credit is good for, you know, then, you know, start working on your credit right away, instead of waiting last minute and then you're declined while you are applying, because we actually see that happen quite often.
I hope my viewers are learning just like me. I learn a lot. I learn a lot. And the more we
learn
talk,
every day.
Yeah, the more we talk, then I start to pick up that probably at some point there is a credit bureau for the companies who are looking for big loans and so on. Maybe at some point we'll have to look at that, start preparing for that at some point. We'll have to look at that so that people need to understand. I've learned a lot. So Anita, you can continue. I'm sorry, I'm always interjecting.
No.
I ask questions because we'll forget. You go that side, and then I had forgotten what question I was supposed to ask. Okay, and I asked this question for
overload.
Pardon?
It is information overload. You know, you're learning a lot of things at the same time. So no, definitely ask questions as and when, please.
Okay. Then you can move on to the next slide. I hope I'm asking the correct question for the viewers out there. If you want to repeat this thing with Anita, you can do it, and you want to ask questions, you'll see at the end of the show, we'll be giving your WhatsApp number. Just leave those questions, and then we'll send to Anita, and then so that she can have them and then prepare and come back with answers. Anita, you can continue.
Awesome. So this one we looked at revolving and short-term credit. On the next slide, we're looking at medium to long-term credit. Okay. So in this case, it was a credit card. Okay. And they would have the account number, account balance, you know, all those details. We've just masked them over here. And you can see that this person also has a very good repayment history. Okay. And if you were to miss a payment, it would show as a red cross over here. And so this person has, you know, a very good one. They've got ticks everywhere. So they've made the minimum payment every month on time. But not everyone is able to do that. You know, for whatever circumstances we have, it's not always possible. If you can't, if for any reason you can't actually make your payment, you know, on time, phone your credit provider, because they do have options to extend terms. You know, we saw a lot of banks roll out this sort of extended terms policy with COVID, you know, where people lost jobs and you don't have an income. And, you know, it was something that was so sudden that we didn't expect to happen. So there is options. It's always best to speak to your credit provider right away as soon as you know you can't pay something. And like that, it won't hurt your score. So in the future, when you do need it for a big ticket item, your credit score will be great.
While you're still there, you say at least they make minimum payment at the end of the month. So now let's say, because we know that creditor will say, pay by the end of the month or the beginning of the month, then the final date is the 7th.
Yes.
So I pay on the 5th, not on the 1st, as I was supposed, or the last day of the month, but I pay on the 5th. I'm still within the 7th. Will that be considered as a good payment? It start counting after the 7th day. Am I right?
Correct. So it all depends with your creditors, you know, with the credit providers. Some say that you must pay by the last day of the month. Some say that you must pay by the first day of the month. So that's all depending on them.
Okay. All right. Then you can continue.
Okay, so now we had a look at short-term credit. We've had a look at medium to long-term credit. The next slide over here, okay, will display any adverse records if you have any. So earlier we spoke about adverse records, which is any defaults or judgments, and these are bad. These are if you haven't paid, any accounts for whatever reason in the longest amount of time. So over here, this is an example of what it would look like, okay, if someone had any adverse on their name, and they would see it under this icon, and they will give the account details, all the details over here. It will show who's the credit provider that granted it on their name. So in this case, this person, it was from Game. And the Game took action, on this date. This is how much they owe them, and this is just the status to say that it's bad debt written off, which just means that this person has not paid the account.
Okay. Now, while you're still there, let's look at this number. What does this number stand for? It's 9,460 or what? Because I see so many zeros. Okay.
Yes.
9,460. And now, on this one, bad debt written off. I hear a lot of people say, nah, you know what? I'm okay. They were all written off. And then what does written off, bad debt written off mean in terms of credit score? If you can explain, because sometimes people misconstrue this. They say, no, they're written off. I don't have them anymore. They're not there in my name again. So yes, I'll get credit. So if you can explain.
So in terms of written off, in the credit provider's case, this credit provider Game tried to contact, this person who owed them money, tried to get them to agree to a repayment history. And they could have gotten even a collections agency to try and contact this person. Maybe this person just used, maybe they changed all the information, they just could never get hold of them again, and it would reflect like this on their profile. So sometimes, so this would display on their profile then. So yes, it's written off, but it still it displays on your credit profile. So maybe that person, in that instance, hasn't actually looked at their credit profile in a very long time, or actually ever, and just doesn't know that that's where it's sitting.
Now, what I wanted to find out is that person is gone, and then the debt is written off. Then he comes back again. Now he goes not to Game, now he goes to the mockers for that matter. It's Game who wrote it off. Will this have an impact in him or her getting a new credit with mockers now?
Yes, definitely.
What impact? What impact?
So it won't. How the whole process works is, we keep the credit information, and when this person goes and applies at Morkels, the Morkels will request a credit report on this person. Okay, like we discussed in the beginning, to make sure that they can afford it, to make sure that they are, a low risk, so that they are not high risk. And then they'll see this information and they say, maybe it's not a good idea to give this person credit, or maybe it's not a good idea to give this person a big credit limit. Let's start off with 500 Rand and see how they pay that, and then we can offer them an increase in credit limit. So it all depends on the credit provider's risk appetite, which is it's purely how much risk the credit provider wants to take on you. They are the ones that end up deciding on it. So they'll say, okay, maybe this one is a tricky one, let's accept him but give him a low credit limit than what he's asking for, or maybe let's we don't want to take a chance on him because he has not paid his accounts on time. He's already got one debt written off, we don't want to be the next.
Okay, so back to where we started, one of those a big R principle, which is responsibility. It is the responsibility of the creditor. If they give him a credit, it is at their own risk. So in other words, it's up to them whether they are prepared to go along with this consumer or not. And then if things goes wrong, we, in other words, I'm referring to credit bureau, we avail the information at their disposal So this information is available for them to make a decision. And then the decision, it's entirely their decision. It has nothing to do with you as credit bureau, whether it's a reckless lending or not. You are not part of it, all right? It will be the creditor, Mockers, and the consumer who will take the full responsibility. Am I correct by describing it that way?
Correct, yes. We provide the information, you know, for them to make the decision on. So we don't actually make the decision. We don't actually deny or accept people for credit. It lies in the hand of the credit provider.
Okay, all right. Then you can go ahead.
Then on our next slide, we have the view of our SIPC and deeds. So it's our directorship linkages and deeds. Unfortunately, this one doesn't show what it looks like if you have a directorship linking, but I can send that to you separately, you know, to display to consumers. But this person has a property information. So we have, again, you know, taken out all the information. So what it would show here is it would show you your, you know, the authority name, your township name, your stand, your title deed number, your buyer name, all the details relating to your purchased property. And again, it's not something that everyone has because, you know, there's so many options. There's renting options. Those don't reflect on your credit profile. This is on your deed section. It's only for registered properties through the deeds office.
Now you can go ahead.
Okay. Then on to our last one over here, we've got previous inquiries. So this shows where you have applied for credit. So what it shows is previous applications for credit, and it's unique to each credit bureau because credit providers can use one credit bureau, they could use two credit bureaus, or they could use all credit bureaus. So this will always be unique to the credit bureau. So for example, this person would have had two over here, two inquiries, but if they had to go and look at another credit bureau, that might have not been there. Purely because that credit provider wasn't using that credit bureau when performing the check. So this one is a bit of a variable, you know, a variable piece. It does show specifically what was for that own credit bureau.
Okay.
And then the last one we have over here was just
okay.
The
before you go there, let me ask this question. The more creditors inquire about sobering, what does it say to the potential creditor? Or the less creditors inquire about sobering, what does it say to creditors? What information does it give them? Of course, we have said it is entirely their decision to decide whether they lend sobering money or not. But I want to know from you as a credit bureau, what does it inform the creditors? So in other words, I'm trying to say, if they ask more about me, there are a lot of inquiries. Is that a good sign? If there are no inquiries, is that a bad sign?
So in short, the more inquiries over a shorter period of time doesn't look good. But the more inquiries, the less inquiries over a longer period of time looks good. So I know it might sound a little bit confusing, but I'm going to just use myself as an example. If I go and apply to 5 different credit providers this month, then it'll look, you know, it'll look like, okay, Anna-Rita is applying to a lot of credit bureaus at the same time, to a lot of credit providers at the same time, which this doesn't look good. You know, it means that she's desperate, you know, which in fact people are. Okay. But if I had to apply every month, maybe, you know, every few months, you know, space that over a period, that would look better. But again, you know, it is based on the credit, you know, the credit provider will, you know, decide if that's a good thing or bad thing for them. But I would say that, you know, a lot of credit inquiries over a shorter period of time would look bad. And, you know, credit inquiries over a longer period of time are better. Purely because if we use this as an example as well, say Anna-Rita is, she's cash strapped, she doesn't have money on her, and she's looking to get a loan, to pay off some of the things that the people are hunting for. I've got 5 different people phoning me saying they want the money, in that case, maybe it's the only option that some people have, or or think that they have, not that they have, and they think that, look, let me get a loan, let me pay this off, and then I'll have one loan. In some cases, it's not the best idea, but in your own situation, that could be. And that person then, sorry, I'm also just going to quickly take a sip of water.
No problem. I'm sure people out there, you are learning a lot. This is some of the information that we need to know and understand. And the information is out there. That is why we say financial education is in the street. You'll get it anywhere. All right. So now you'll understand when I say it's in the street. Anita is somewhere in Joburg. I'm also somewhere in Joburg. This is the street where we meet. Okay, Anita. Yeah.
Yes. Just finishing on the last point is that a person might then open credit accounts every single month. Just to try and get by, they'll open a new one to, try and pay off the old one. And that puts them then in a position where they're never going to get out of credit, which is, it's not where a person wants to be and not where we want anyone to be, because it's so much harder to get out of that, that role. You've got to pay this person and you're taking something else to pay something else. And, you're forever taking from something to give to someone. And, it's just going to put you in a bigger hole. So it's definitely not, not something we want people to see. And that's why affordability and, having a credit bureau pull credit reports on people is so important, so that we can avoid that and avoid, putting consumers in this position.
In our language, I'm a Zulu. We say we have mashonisa. You know the word mashonisa? Mashonisa, it's a Zulu word which simply means pull down syndrome, pulling you down. All right. So this micro lenders, we call them mashonisa because they pull people down. So what is happening is I borrow from mashonisa A this month. Next month, I go to Mashonisa B to pay Mashonisa A. The next month, I go to Mashonisa C to pay Mashonisa B. So I'm trapped in a cycle. I'm not getting out. So probably it's trying to discourage that people should not move in a cycle. So I'm just explaining it to you. What in other words, I'm elaborating. That we talk about mashonisa pull you down, so you'll end up not finishing. It's gonna be a continuous thing. All right.
And that's why it's so important to, when you are looking for credit, if you are either at whatever credit provider, to make sure that they are registered with the NCR. Because, now in this days and times, during lockdown, there was a huge increase of companies pretending to be, credit providers and scamming people out of their money, because you pay the upfront fees, you pay all these things and they just run off with your money. In the other case is that, like you said, credit provider, these people aren't looking then at your credit report because they are not actually registered credit providers. So they could be, what we like to call loan sharks. They give you 1,000 Rand, you end up paying 2,000 Rand back, but you go to a different one every month. And like that, it can't be controlled, so that we can't say, you're spending way too much, you don't have enough to pay back, we're not going to grant you this, because it's just going to put you in a bigger hole. It's just going to put you, back down.
Now, just to tap on your brain, what would happen? I know this might not be a fair question to you. It might be a fair question for NCR. What would happen to this people who are not registered with NCR?
That's definitely a question for the NCR. I'm not too sure about that, that whole process. But I think once they are caught, then the full might of the law, will be dealt with. They'll be dealt with. Yeah.
Okay. Should I stop sharing? Or are you still going on?
No, we can stop. There we go.
Okay. All right. Let me see here. All right. It was a fruitful. I don't know whether you still want to add one or two things on this topic, but I really gained a lot. I, as an individual, there's quite a lot to learn out of this. And then I hope people out there are definitely going to learn a lot. So I don't know whether there's anything that you'd like to add.
I think we've touched on everything. I mean, it's such a broad topic. There's so much to learn. And, so much to say that we can't all say it in the first, in the first of our series of videos. But, we will continue to educate people, tell them, show them what's right, what's wrong, what's an advantage, what's a disadvantage. There's just so much to learn. So I'm glad that we at least have gotten the first bit out so that, they can start on a good, with a good education foundation.
You know what? I'm going to make an appeal to you and say, look at other topics that might be more relevant to help our people understand the credit industry debt so that they can use it to their advantage. And like, they say debt, it's like a loaded gun. It either kills you or it kills your enemy. So either way, so you need to use it to kill the enemy, which is your poverty, rather than it kills you. And then, yes, and then the next question that I want us to discuss, which is the assignment that I'm giving it to you, is the credit bureau in relation to companies. Because we teach everybody, we teach personal finance, we teach business finance. That's very important. But thank you very much, Anita. I really appreciate. You are the first credit bureau that we requested, and then they responded positively. I really appreciate. I wish so many people, when you ask them to say, come and share knowledge, they'll be as positive as you guys are doing. Because sometimes people, I don't know whether it's like we want to bash them. That's not the case. Let's enlighten people. And the more we enlighten people, people will start to be responsible. And once people start to be responsible, our economy will thrive. As you know, that economy encourages money circulation. And the more money circulation is, the healthier the economy is. Anita, yeah, you're saying?
And responsibly.
Yes, which is the R word, it's responsible. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We have started a relationship, which is another R word. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Sobri. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. We'll keep in touch. Drop me your contact number apart from the email, so that sometimes it's easier just to send you WhatsApp.
Yes.
Unlike, I'm driving, hey, I must sit down and write an email. I can simply WhatsApp you and say, Anita, can we talk on such and such a date? All right.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
I'll send you through Splendy's contact details if any consumers need any help, or they want to dispute any information, or if they have any questions, they can send it through there.
Yeah. Give me other contacts of other credit bureaus, so that when they want, we can always avail them. We'll also avail them on one of our social media platforms, like our Facebook group, where we discuss debts, problems, blacklisting, and so on. So they can know who to contact. Thank you very much, Anita. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Keep well.